Hello everyone, how are you guys? I'm absolutely not okay. My life is a chaotic mess right now, and I feel like my head is about to burst with the amount of craziness I am recently surrounded with. Basically, my estranged, selfish, mean, and annoying stepsister is back, and she's demanding money. Now, you may be wondering why I'm using such harsh words to describe my stepsister, words I might not have even used to define my greatest enemy. Well, let me tell you. Before I go straight into the main story, I need to give you guys a bit of a background check so you're not lost about what's happening and why it's happening. When I was 3 years old, my biological father left my mom and me, and he never came back. I don't remember much about him, but I know I never got to say goodbye to him. That's beside the point, though. Pretty much my entire childhood, all throughout elementary school, I didn't have a father. Everyone always made fun of me for having a single mother, but I didn't care. As long as my mom was happy, there was nothing else that mattered to me. However, in the first year of middle school, I came to find out that the reason my mom was so happy for the past year wasn't because of something, rather, it was because of someone. My mom had been secretly dating someone behind my back. Obviously, like most kids my age, I wasn't happy at the fact that she hid something like this from me for an entire year. But when she explained how she wanted to protect the family dynamic and not bring a random guy that she wasn't sure was going to last, I understood where she was coming from. I knew this guy, Henry, was making my mom really happy. There was no doubt that she had been glowing with happiness during the past year, which is why I accepted her decision when she wanted to involve him in our lives. Soon enough, almost 7 months after Henry was introduced to me, he and my mom got married. I still remember the day vividly. It was the first time I ever met Vivian, my stepsister. She seemed very disinterested in the entire wedding, like she couldn't wait to get out of here. However, I soon realized that the expression on her face wasn't disinterested, it was pure hatred. She didn't try to hide her discomfort at having us over at her house. Technically, it was our house at that time as well. My mom and I moved in a week after they got married. We had some loose ends we needed to take care of, and once that was done, we moved in. However, what we got was far less than what can be classified as a warm welcome. Obviously, Henry gave us a very nice welcome. He loved my mom after all. There was no doubt about the fact that he was absolutely whipped for my mother. I could see it in his eyes when he talked about her or looked at her. The problem was Vivian. This girl was absolutely insane with her hate for her. I'm not even sure why she hated us so much, but I'm assuming it's because my mom replaced her mom or something like that. However, none of that was my fault, nor was it my mother's fault. Her parents split for whatever reason, but there was no way it was because of my mother. Henry and Mom didn't even meet until years after Vivian's parents split up. The thing is, I knew she didn't want us around at the house, but I thought she'd at least have the decency to not let it show it on her face or from her actions. She just straight up ignored both me and my mom every single time we tried to talk to her about anything. She didn't even sit at the same breakfast table with us or have any sort of interaction. There was a time when my mom was really hurt by her actions, so she tried talking to Henry about it. However, when Henry tried to knock some sense into his daughter, it turned into a big fight with Vivian, stating that she didn't really see us as family and so she had no obligation to be nice to us. That was the day we decided we were not going to put in more effort in trying to be nice to her. We'd be civil with her, it's not like we'd start being rude as well, but we wouldn't try anymore. Since then, we haven't talked to her for years, even though we live in the same house. I've never had a relationship with her like normal sisters or even stepsisters do. I always hoped I would, especially when I got to know that Henry had a daughter who was close to my age. I was so excited to finally have a family, but it all went down the drain. But what really caused our relationship to go astray was when my mom got sick a few years ago, and she ruined her chances of getting better. We weren't really rich, but we lived comfortably. We had enough money to afford what we needed or liked without having to worry too much about it. Which is why when Mom got sick, we weren't particularly stressed about the money. She had developed a lung condition that was super deadly. As the days went on, we saw her getting weaker and weaker, with no energy left in her body. It was really sad to see her suffering like that. Henry and I were working our asses off trying to take care of my mom and get her to all my appointments. However, in all of that, Vivian was no help. She didn't even care that we were close to losing my mom. Not once did she come and ask how she was or if she was getting better. She was just focused on going out with her boyfriend and getting the most out of her dating life. What happened next shocked us to our core. We never expected Vivian to do this to us, even though she was a bitch toward us. To do something like this was just heartless. Anyway, let me tell you what she actually did. A few months after Mom got sick, her lungs started deteriorating increasingly fast. At this point, our appointments started getting more frequent, and obviously all of us started getting more stressed as well. Some days, I had to skip school so I could stay home and take care of my mom if my dad wasn't available. However, in all of this, Vivian was of no help. Then, the time that ruined life for us came. My mom's lungs started giving up on her. We got the news at one of our appointments about what was happening. Apparently, my mom needed a lung transplant to get back to health. Without it, there was a chance that she might not even survive to see the next month. We got everything ready and waited almost 2 weeks before we got a match for the transplant. By then, we were losing hope and were preparing to say goodbye to my mom. Thankfully, we managed to get a date for the transplant. 2 days before the operation, Henry and I couldn't find Vivian at all. It had been over 2 days since she had been home, and we were starting to get worried. No matter how bratty she was, she never stayed out for more than a day. We tried calling her, tried leaving her more than a dozen text messages, but she didn't reply to any of them. At one point, she even blocked my number when I started calling her a lot. We were confused and stressed, but we didn't have too much time to worry about her. Obviously, we still left her calls and messages, but our main focus was on making sure our mom's operation was successful. That was our goal for the week. We were hopeful that Vivian would return soon enough so we could stop stressing about it. I wasn't too stressed about her leaving, to be honest. I didn't have a nice relationship with her, and it's not she treated me well either. However, I was incredibly fond of Henry, so to see him this stressed about his daughter was distraught for me as well, until we got the biggest shock of our lives a day before the operation. I was preparing my mom's bag for the hospital when I heard a loud shout coming from my dad's study on the bottom floor. Scared out of my mind, I rushed down to see my dad standing in front of his safe, all the contents empty and a letter in his hand. Confused, I rushed to him and took the letter out of his hand to read the content. As it turned out, Vivian stole all the money from the safe to start a new life with her boyfriend in Europe. She hadn't even left a single penny out for us. She told us all our money when she knew it could save my mother from death. My dad's hand was shaking as he held the table to steady himself, not really trusting himself to stand straight. Even though Vivian was so harsh to us, he really treasured her a lot. So to see her stealing all his money and running away really hit him hard. He was devastated, and rightfully so. Without any money, we didn't know how we'd pay for the operation. Yes, we had insurance, but there was a limit to what it could cover, and we were far from that. Henry was really stressed about the situation. All his savings, all his money, he had to start from scratch for everything. After the operation was done and we got the bill, we realized that Henry alone couldn't pay for the operation, not even through monthly payments. With the medications and the constant follow-up appointments, the cost kept rising and we just didn't have enough money to pay all of it. So I had to get a second job. I had graduated from high school at that point, and even though I was supposed to start college that fall, it didn't seem like a good idea to leave my parents alone when they needed me so badly. That's why I took a gap year. I got 2 jobs during that year, trying to help Henry pay the bills so the stress wouldn't fall on only his shoulders. It was hard to survive at that point. With the monthly hospital costs, medicine, proper food, and care for my mom, and just getting basic living necessities for ourselves, the money felt like it was slipping out of our hands at an alarming rate. I didn't have the luxury of indulging myself in something that made me happy, or going out to fancy places with my friends or anything like that. Even though Henry made enough money to have us live a comfortable life, there were times when he'd come home stressed about not having any savings for backup emergencies, which was exactly why I was working and saving so hard. A few years later, right when I graduated from college, my mother passed away. It was a devastating time for both of us. We never imagined having to live without Mom, and to see it become a reality, we were stunned. After months of grieving, I finally found my feet again. I knew my mom wouldn't want me to waste my life away and not get anything done because I was grieving her. That's when I knew I had to get my life together, and I did. After a few more years of hard work, I became one of the most successful lawyers in my firm. I had cases being assigned to me left and right, and I solved them in less time than most people around me. At that point, I was proud of who I had become. The only person who had supported me through all my hardships was my stepdad, Henry. He was my pillar since my mom died. We both went through a lot, which ended up with us depending on each other. It was nice to have someone understand what I had been through and to be proud of me for achieving so much. Yes, I made friends in university, and I had a lot of friends from school as well, but they didn't know the extent of what I had been through. No one except Henry knew. Vivian had still not shown up, not even after all these years. She didn't even show up when our mom died, so I didn't really expect her to show herself at all. But she did. A few months ago, Henry gave me a really big shock. It was a normal Tuesday morning when I called him for our daily morning chat. However, he didn't pick up, so I got really worried. No matter what was going on, Henry never missed my calls. I had a free day and I lived in the city, so I went on to check on him, only to find him in his bed, not breathing, not moving, just super still. My stepfather was now dead. Shaking, I called an ambulance and got myself prepared to arrange his funeral and everything I needed. He wanted to be buried next to my mom according to his will, and as the safekeeper and the executor, I made sure to fulfill all his wishes. It's been a few months since then, and I've started to get my life back on track after all that. But Vivian showing up just caused it to go up in a frenzy again. She showed up a week ago, around 8 a.m. in the morning, right when I was about to leave for work. I don't know how she got my number or how she found my address. I didn't bother asking. I was too angry at the fact that the first thing she asked when she saw me was, "So how much inheritance am I getting?" with a big grin on her face. She looked like a mess when she came. Hair all over the place, eyes sunken into her face, wrinkles growing over her forehead. She looked like she hadn't rested well for days or weeks even. I couldn't believe the audacity she had to show up after everything she's done and ask for inheritance. It's not like Henry left her anything either. He left everything under my name because Vivian abandoned the whole family when we needed her the most. So I put up a big fake smile on my face before saying absolutely nothing and slamming the door in her face. I think I did the right thing to keep her in her place, but I know how stubborn she is. It's been a week, but there's no way she's just going to let it go now. I know she's going to come back for me and pick a fight, but honestly, I'm not scared of her. I'm just anticipating what new antics she comes up with this time. Update 1. Just like I had predicted, Vivian did come back. I was coming back from work when I got a call from an unknown number. I usually hesitate picking up because most of the time they're just scam callers trying to get money out of you. However, because Vivian had just come to see me the day before yesterday, I knew this was her. With a sigh and a bubble of annoyance rising up in me, I picked up the call and asked her what she wanted. Again, as expected, she wanted me to hand over some money and Dad's house to her. At that point, I realized that maybe she didn't know what was actually in the will. However, the second I had that thought, another thought passed by stating that she didn't really deserve to know. Why should she, when she left us, struggle because of her selfish desires? Either way, I told her that she doesn't have any inheritance and that Dad didn't leave her anything, leading to a fit of anger that she tried to convey through the phone. When we were kids, maybe her fits of rage would have scared me into giving her whatever she wanted, but not now. Not when I know I have an advantage over her. Looking at her state, I could easily tell that she was struggling and needed money more than anything. However, that wasn't any of my concern. And if she hadn't left my mom to die, maybe I'd reconsider my decision. I hung up the call and angrily stomped all the way to my apartment, only to find Vivian leaning against my apartment door, tapping her feet like she couldn't wait for me to get home. As soon as she saw me, a wicked grin turned up on her face, making me feel that uncomfortable feeling bubble inside me. I knew there was no way she was going to let this go, and since she knew my address now, she'd hunt me down to get money. With a roll of my eyes, I ignored her as I opened the front door and quickly ushered her in, not wanting to deal with all of this in public. When we entered my apartment, her eyes gazed at every corner of my house before landing on me. The first thing she spoke about was money. It was a little scary to have her in my house looking so relaxed like she'd know she'd win. This was probably because I was really scared of her as a kid and would do anything she wanted me to do. But I've changed now. I'm not the same person as I was when I was a kid, so when she brought up money again, I told her she was not getting anything, and the best thing would be to just leave me alone and save us both the trouble. She didn't do that, though. Instead, she started throwing the fact that she was Henry's biological daughter in my face and demanded that she get half of his inheritance at least since she deserved it. It turned into a full-fledged argument soon enough when I screamed about how she did nothing to deserve the title of daughter anymore. How she left us alone, how she left him alone, how she didn't even care that the money she stole was crucial for my mom's health. Remembering everything she did to us, talking about it and throwing it in her face, felt like I was reopening my wounds. I didn't want to fight, I didn't have the energy to fight, but Vivian never gave up, If she wanted something, she made sure she was going to get it. So if she wasn't going to give up, neither was I. Our fight must have lasted for more than 15 minutes before I felt myself running out of energy. I tried telling her that I wasn't going to go against Dad's wishes and give her anything, but the words just weren't going through her thick skull. It took me threatening to call the police on her before she even budged. With a glare and 911 dialed on my phone, I ushered her out of my apartment before taking a deep breath and forcing myself to calm down. Since then, I've had no contact with her at all, but I know she's not going to let me off this easy. It's Vivian, of course. She's going to make this hard. Until then, I'm just mentally preparing myself to deal with her antics once again. Update 2. It had been 5 days since Vivian had contacted me. I was getting a bit angsty because I knew there was no way she was just leaving like that. She wasn't that easy to get rid of, and I knew it. Instead, about 3 days ago, I went back to the house since I missed Dad and wanted to be in his space. The place was covered in dust since I couldn't bring myself to visit it after he died. Even though it's been a while, the memories of him are still so fresh in my mind. To go to a house that used to be filled with his presence and realize that he was no longer here was not an easy thing to do, so I stopped doing it. However, after Vivian showed up and that whole drama happened, I realized how much I actually miss him and can't wait to visit that house again. The only one stopping me from going there was myself, so that's exactly what I did. As soon as I entered, a wave of sadness hit me. Even months later, everything was still where he had left them, and if I could do something about it, there was no way anything was moving. I did end up looking through his things, though. Half out of curiosity, and half because I just wanted to be able to hold things he once held and used. It was around an hour later into my digging when I came across this stack of letters in his study. All of them were from Vivian, each and every single one of them. I was really confused because, first of all, we all lived in the same house, so I didn't know why she was sending him letters. And because Dad had never mentioned anything about these letters to me. I got the answer to my questions when I read the letters, though. Apparently, Vivian was asking, or threatening to make us leave the house. All the letters were filled with hateful words about us, about how we were trying to replace her mom, and Dad was just too blind to see it, along with the fact that she was incredibly uncomfortable with living in the same house as us. I was burning with rage when I read these letters. I didn't understand how any sane person could hate someone so much to put their life in danger. It wasn't like we made her mother leave. She left on her own accord way before we even came into their lives. It was ridiculous to be mad at us for something that was out of our control. However, the last letter is what got to me. She threatened Dad and told him that if he didn't make us leave, she'd run away. So he's losing someone either way, and he should pick his biological daughter instead. However, Henry was not blind to everything that she had been doing to us, how badly she was treating us. Knowing him, he probably didn't think Vivian would actually do it since we were in high school at that time. We weren't even 18 yet. Where would she go? How would she go? That was probably what he thought. I'm not sure if he had talked to Vivian about this or just let her keep sending letters. Judging by how she's getting angrier in each letter, I have a feeling that Dad was either ignoring them or not giving her the response she wanted. However, I need to know more details about this. This is why I called Vivian today and let her know that she should come over tomorrow. With the giggle in her voice, I have a feeling that she's thinking I'm about to hand her the inheritance. I can't wait to see her expression when she realizes that I know exactly what she's been trying to do all those years before she ran away. Update 3. I confronted Vivian about it last night. I thought I should update you guys as soon as possible. So as soon as I woke up, I turned my phone on and now I'm writing this. I had invited Vivian to my house last night because I wanted to confront her about the letters. How could she even think of demanding inheritance at this point? Not only did she treat everyone really badly and leave the house when we needed her, but she also kept pressuring Dad to give up to divide the family. When she came over, again, the first question that she asked was about the inheritance and how much she was going to get. At that point, my anger level was increasingly high. I threw the letters onto the table and asked her to explain herself. As soon as she saw the letters, the envelopes, she knew it was what she had written. Her face morphed into anger as she screamed and demanded that I didn't have the right to go through Dad's stuff, especially with things that had no concern to me. That's when it turned into a big fight because there was no way I was going to let her give me shit over this. Not when I've been the daughter and she's been off living her best life after stealing all of our money. I was sick and tired of us not having a proper conversation. Every time we tried to talk, it turned into a fight where we'd both be screaming our heads off. I tried settling it nicely this time and explained that even if I wanted to, which I don't, I can't give her any inheritance because that's not what's written in the will. I can't go against it because that's just not legal. Apparently, the word legal was some sort of trigger for her, because as soon as she heard it, she went off to another fit of anger. She started telling me if I wanted to bring law into this, then she could do the same thing as well. Told me she'd sue me for withholding inheritance from the man's biological daughter. She seemed very serious about doing so as well. For some reason, she kept boasting about the fact that she has a lawyer friend and she can take everything from me. I talked to my lawyer as soon as she left my house. I told him everything that happened and everything that Vivian threatened me for. I was super stressed about the entire situation until my lawyer told me that there was no way she was going to win the case because she had no legitimate case. Even a legal document, which was the will, was against her. The only thing she could bring to court was that she was the biological daughter and I was not. That conversation really calmed me down because I knew I'd be safe, and maybe this way I could finally get rid of her. Update 4. A week after the fight with Vivian, she sent me a court order telling me she sued me for withholding inheritance. As soon as I got that, I set up a meeting with my lawyer and decided to counterattack her by giving all the evidence about her running away, her threatening dad, everything. The court date was 2 days ago. The week before that, I was stressed out of my mind. Even though my gut told me that there was no way Vivian was ever going to win this, I didn't want to disappoint Dad and have Vivian own things that he owned, not when she didn't cherish them when he was alive. The day before the hearing, I got a text message from Vivian. All it said was, "You're going down." What she didn't know was that I had collected all the nasty texts she had sent to me as children, along with the hundreds of messages I had sent her when she ran away, how I was begging her to save my mom's life. Even though we managed to get through it, things would have been much easier if she had never taken the money and let us use it for the operation. The hearing went by pretty smoothly, in my opinion. Vivian could only bring up the point that she was the biological daughter, and me and my mom came into their lives to steal everything from Vivian and leave her all on her own. That's when my lawyer brought out all the evidence that was gathered by us, showing exactly what kind of a person she was when we were kids. And even now, the messages she sent me telling me, I have no right over the inheritance and everything nasty she had told me over the past month. Obviously, just like we predicted, we ended up winning the case and Vivian had to face the consequences. She was given nothing and told that she had no right over any of the inheritance, since the circumstances showed that our dad made a lucid and well-thought decision based on her behavior and actions. It brought me so much satisfaction to see her face crumple as she realized that there was no way she was going to win against me now. It just wasn't possible. A few days later, when I was ready to pop back into my normal life, she showed up again. She was asking for money, and if I had any, I could give her. Apparently, the guy she had left with had dumped her not even a year later and used up all the money for his personal gains. So she was left with nothing and started out with minimum wage jobs to keep herself alive since she didn't even have a high school diploma. That's also how she got into drugs and is suffering from addiction. Even though I was still mad at her for everything she had done, I offered to put her in a rehab center so she could get her life back together and get back on her own feet. I just hope she appreciates what I'm doing for her and focuses on getting better.